And in this tutorial, we will be talking about Android testing frameworks and what are the different testing methodologies or testing types of testings that we implement in Android. And we will also understand what are the frameworks that we are gonna use to run this test. Okay. The most important thing is we have different types of tests, right? We have unit test, we have an integration test, and we have UI test. And each of these tests is will be explained in detail. I will try to just give a theoretical description of this unit test, integration test, and UI test. But in the later on in the upcoming tutorials, we will be implementing this test. Okay, practically writing this test. Okay, and another important thing is also kinds of test works with framework like JUnit, Mockito, RoboElectric, and Espresso. So, and one of the most important fundamental software development practice is test-driven development. Okay, which is a practice that prioritizes test over implementation. That means you write test first and then you write the implementation, okay, in the second call. So that means it prioritizes test over implementation. So obviously by going through this tutorial and also in the future tutorial, we will be summarizing and trying to implement this trap and learning this software development practice that will be very helpful in your working life as an Android developer. Okay, so we will also learn particularly we will try to understand what are these different types of tests. But first of all, understanding of these different types of tests, but why do we write the test, right? What is the need of writing the test? The need to write a test in an Android development is obviously because we want an application with a very less bug or no bug at all, right? So to in point of view of writing less bugs, I mean like writing a code with less bug and trying to understand the implementation that you have done in your code, we are writing test is to verify your code that you have written. Okay, so this is very important practice, software development practice that we have to do, because with writing test you pretty much understand what is the implementation doing, what is the code doing actually. Okay, what is the input and what will be the output, everything will be pretty much clear, and it will make your development practice much more easier. Okay, so we're gonna analyze different kinds of tests, but just you have to understand. Let me present you that actually there are when you run your test, you can run in your device emulator, or you can run it locally, right? So based on the test where you are running it, there are two different kinds of tests. One is a local test, which is pretty much here in your com.test, this folder, where it's also named as unit test, and these are also called local tests, which are located in this test folder, right? And these are unit tests. Okay, and there are also called instrumentation tests, which are located in this Android test folder, and you will run this test actually in your emulator. Okay, this trust, if you run it, it will be run on the emulator, whereas if you run this test, it will be run locally in your Android Studio. Okay, so you don't need to launch any Android devices or like your physical devices, right? So this is the most important concept that you have to understand. And now we will try to explore more about some of the libraries, right? Some of the libraries and some different types of test. Okay, so actually both of these tests, like your Android test and your unit test, they all depend on this JUnit library. As you can see here, test implementation JUnit and Android test implementation, they are both using this JUnit library. Okay, And this JUnit library will help developers set up their tests and group them into different categories. It also provides different configuration options as well as extension that other libraries can build up. So we can actually investigate upon this testing pyramid, which helps the developers it's a kind of a guide to developers to see how your test is structured. Like we can see at the bottom of the pyramid, which is represented by the unit test, moves upward through the integration test, and also it further moves upward to and reach finally on the top as a unit UI test, right? Which is also called end-to-end test or UI test. So during this phase of moving from unit test to integration test to UI test, we will be learning different types of libraries like Mockito or also Mockito Kotlin, which helps to maintain mainly in unit test and also useful for creating mocks or testing doubles in which we can manipulate inputs so that we can assert different scenarios. A mock or a test double is an object that mimics the implementation of another object. Every time a test interacts with mocks, you can specify the behavior of this interaction. Whereas for Robo-Electric, which is also an open source library that brings the Android framework onto your machine, allowing you to test activities and fragment locally and not on the emulator. Okay, so Robo-Electric is very powerful and it's also open source, so you can use it both for unit test and integration test. Okay, and finally you have Expresso, which allows developers to create interactions, clicking buttons like inserting text and edit text components and so on, and assertions verifying the view displays certain text are currently being displayed to the user are enabled and so on. And so it's pretty much like a UI test, also or unit test, your integration test, right? So you can use this kind of libraries that I have mentioned before, like Mockito for unit test, Robo-Electric and Expresso for either unit test or integration test or UI test, right? So so what is this what is this unit test actually? What is this idea? Okay, so they are actually, I have defined you, they have three number of tests. So unit tests, as you can see here, you can write a lot of unit tests, right? But UI tests are pretty small and it's like 70%, 20% and 10%, you can see. It's like 70 is to 20 is to 10 ratio. Okay, these tests are written. So unit tests, these are local tests that are that validates individual classes and methods. They should represent most of your tests, and they should be fast, easy to debug and easy to maintain. So they are also known as small tests. Okay, so these are unit tests. Integration tests are instead they are local tests with Robo-Electric or instrumentation tests that validate interaction between your app modules and components. So they are pretty slower compared to unit tests, but more complex than unit tests. So the increase in complexity is due to interaction between the components, the UI components. These are also known as a medium test. Okay, and finally end-to-end tests or UI tests. These are the instrumentation tests that verifies complete user journey and scenarios that makes them more complex and harder to maintain. So okay, they should represent the small number of your total, like just 10% of your entire test. Yeah, this is the pretty much the testing pyramid, which will help you guys to pretty much understand the scenario of your test, right? And finally you have this manual test, but it's pretty much done manually. It just covers very little like coverage of your test, right? And that's it, guys. This was a very simple introduction of test. Okay, the types of different tests, and hope you like it. But in the my future lecture, I will be in detail talking about different libraries that I mentioned before, like JUnit, Robo-Electric, Mockito. I'll be also interesting about Expresso and many more. So catch you up in the next lecture, guys, and thank you very much.